Good afternoon, good evening, or as it is here in Europe, good morning. Damien, is it going to be a good morning for Nicolas Jarry, who is on my screen right now?
Um, I hope if not good for him, then at least it's going to be competitive for him. I've said before that I have this track record of getting to the stream here and then the match sucks. Thankfully, this isn't what happens today. I do think it's Dimitrov has some sort of an advantage with that court in Shanghai. Like he can slice Jarry to death. Maybe I don't know. Also, the way he played against Alcaraz, of course, if he can serve like that, especially. But he has lost to Jarry twice, both on clay though. So it feels like here the power balance could be a little different.
Yeah, I mean, the head-to-head is 2-0 in Nicolas Jarry's favour, and it's 4-1. But as you say, they are on clay in the last meeting earlier this year in Geneva on the dirt. Are you? I'm guessing I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to fire it anyway. When you see the quarterfinal lineup, um, is it like? Oh, there's no big names in terms of the top sort of 4 or 5 players. There's no Sinner, there's no Alcaraz, there's no Djokovic, of course, because he's not there. No Medvedev either. No Zverev. Or are you going, this is nice. This is a slightly different lineup. It's got Nicolas Jarry in there, among others. Dimitrov, of course, who's sort of having a good, solid season, but is not somebody who's been getting to the deep parts of the big tournaments. Is it something that excites you when you see that quarterfinal lineup? What were your thoughts on the early departures of the big names, but seeing a new looking quarterfinal lineup?
The bottom half was beautiful. Maybe it would have been even more beautiful if Zhang beat Hurkacz, and then you have Marozsan, Zhang, Shelton, Korda. That's
Uh-huh.
just pure excitement. Top half interests me slightly less. I think the only real bummer right now for me personally would be if Andrei Rublev won it. And not that I, hate Andrei Rublev or anything, but it would just be the boring answer, the boring version, right? Even I know Hurkacz and Dimitrov have ATP 1000 titles too. Just like Rublev, just one of them. But they don't necessarily have that same sort of consistency. Especially Dimitrov. Hurkacz has been reaching these quarters, semis at the ATP 1000 level quite a lot. I think he's only missing one right now, one of the events. But still, I think Dimitrov or Hurkacz winning this would still be relatively fresh. Whereas Rublev winning that, it would just be a little bit like Monte Carlo to me, where the draw opens up for him, he takes it, but are we really super excited? Are we screaming that Andrei Rublev will now make a major impact
Hmm.
at the Grand Slam level in 2024? Not really. But if someone else gets that title, that's when we actually have, a storyline, I suppose. Hurkacz, if he wins, he basically has like a second tier chance for the ATP Finals suddenly, right? Korda winning that, of course, also would be a big story and like the sort of season that could have been. Dimitrov or Jarry winning, I think that's absolutely huge. Jarry breaking the top 20 for the first time. Jarry basically, yeah, having the best season of his career and also playing well off clay now. Dimitrov, of course, coming back to form. That would be huge as well. Ugo Humbert winning the ATP 1000 title, yes. But then Rublev, there's no storyline really. So that's why I would be disappointed if he ends up taking the title, which honestly very well could happen because, well, the quality of the players in the draw is, I guess, slightly lesser than what you would usually expect. Again, obviously, the differences aren't huge. Like, you're not going to really spot it in the quality of play. People complaining are probably going to be just, doing that because they are used to the big names. But it is a draw that Andrei Rublev could capitalize on, and that's the only result that I would be disappointed with.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I like some of those narratives, and they all make sense. Can her catch make it still to Turin?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, someone who can make it is probably right now at like the 40th spot or something. And of course, these are very theoretical because you have to win Paris.
Yeah.
Actually, the first player who is out is Dusan Lajovic at 44. But because of differences in scheduling, you also have Aslan Karatsev at 47 who can still make it. I'm talking about the ATP race, by the way, not the official rankings. But
Yeah.
yeah, Hurkacz, if he wins, he would be just 300 and something points behind Rune. So with Basel and Paris left to play for him, he would actually have a solid shot at the eighth spot. Obviously, he would need like a huge result. Actually, I think he's also playing Tokyo. So yeah, basically, if he won the title, he becomes one of the contenders for the eighth spot, and it seems that like probably only the eighth spot is up for grabs in the ATP Finals. Obviously,
Mhm.
it could change with like a surprise Shanghai and then a surprise Paris winner, but it's likely that only the eighth spot is really up for grabs. But yeah, with a title, Hurkacz would actually be eligible. I mean, he would be pretty close. Dimitrov probably a little tougher, but he would be 500 points away than, from Rune. So also not out of it completely.
Yeah. I also agree with you, Damien, regarding Rublev winning the title. And do we now get excited for his Australian Open chances? I think no. I mean, who knows? We could be proven wrong. But I do think that if Hurkacz, for example, was to win this title and have a good end to the season indoors in Europe, for example, we may well go into Australia, as long as he continues that form, as like going, he's in that next group. He's not gonna be, he could win every title between now and Melbourne, and he's not gonna break into the sort of top 2 or 3 favorites, but he could be leading the next pack, if you like.
Yeah,
Because that race is open in a way.
I think he wouldn't really break into like the top four. Zverev is probably up for grabs in terms of like, getting ahead of him. But I think regardless of what happens really in the next 2 months, of course, not talking about injuries, but in terms of results, we will still be looking at Djokovic, Alcaraz, Medvedev, and Sinner as the main favorites for the Australian Open. So
A
um,
lovely backhand cross court winner during that first game for Dimitrov, which wasn't super comfortable at 30 all. Jarry sort of made him think a bit, but you've got a two-handed backhand, right?
no, one-hander.
Oh, one-handed.
Federer
And
played a one-hander, so
what
I
I was
have to
then going to
play one-hander
say, I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought you had a two-handed one, but I also was thinking to myself, um, well, I'm now going to ask that question. Did Federer's one-handed then have an influence? You know,
Um, like it was never really a choice for me. When I started playing, I knew that I wanted to hit a one-hander. Like I
okay.
never really gave it a thought because it was obvious to me. I mean, Federer had a one-hander. It was beautiful. I wanted to play it too, and I don't regret it. We are amateurs. I don't think my one-hander matters all that much. Um,
You're not thinking about the career you could have had with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I started playing way too late for any
Yeah.
thought like that to ever cross my mind, really. But yeah, I think there are definitely some issues with like absorbing pace with for me. But at the same time, maybe it is a rule sort of that players with one-handers tend to have better slices. I think it's one of my best shots too, so I don't really mind at all. Never regretted it.
Do one-handers tend to have better slices? Is that? I mean,
Oh,
if we
for
look at
sure, yeah.
Dimitrov
Other than
and
Tsitsipas,
Roger.
yeah. Other than
Yeah,
Tsitsipas, but
yeah.
there is something about the technique for slices and volleys, backhand volleys, of course, like the more
Okay,
classic
yeah.
technique, being fairly similar, and yeah, they do tend to be better at slicing. Maybe also because they need to do it more, Maybe also because they have better reach on the one hander, and if you have two hands, you sort of have to change. I mean, you definitely have to change your grip if you have a two-hander, and just yeah, play a slice with one hand, whereas with your one-hander, like it's all very natural to transition between it, and also you might simply need it more to defend.
Yeah, funnily enough, my slice has got I'm a two-handed backhand. My slice has got a bit better, but my backhand volleys compared to the forehand, it's probably even more of a gap between my ability to forehand volley and backhand volley than even just the forehand and backhand, where my forehand is just generally stronger. But
Hmm.
if that's 60-40, in terms of like weight, so to speak. My volleying is more like 80-20, and that I'm quite comfortable on the forehand side. But yeah, I mean when I'm playing doubles, there's a bit more. I find there's a bit more room for maneuver with trying to avoid backhand volleys, if that makes sense. But I'm trying to think of a scenario where that plays out. But there are certain ways of sort of putting my a bit like not quite the same as sort of a run around forehand. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. There's talking of sidetracked, Max. That regarding your question, do I like the song "Unbreak My Heart"? It's a long time since I heard it. Yeah, it's a good 90s pop song. There are certainly far worse ones out there. That's for sure. 1-1 here, by the way, Dimitrov, Jarry. I was quite intrigued at the beginning of the match how you, by the what way you were talking, you were making Dimitrov the hot favorite here, right?
Uh, a bit of a favorite. I mean, I do think that on hard courts he should have a slightly easier time, just maybe taking advantage of the athletical differences between them, which are pretty huge, and forcing Jarry to bend the knees low with the slice. But I don't know. Jarry's game on, I mean, off the ground this year, off clay, has improved so much. These
Yeah,
courts, we've said many times, maybe not these courts, but like these conditions do have like a quick court and then heavy balls, which for Jarry also seems like a pretty good combo. We've had many players like this, even this event, guys who appreciate a bit of a heavier ball, a higher bounce, like Marozsan, Zhang, guys like that. So I don't know, maybe that's actually not true at all. You would think that after Dimitrov beat Alcaraz, if he plays like that again, he should win. But it's not how it works in tennis, right?
no, no, it's not. By the way, I know you were watching Marozsan her
Yeah.
catch. Um, Actually, there's been 3 or 4 really good matches in this tournament. There was 2 in the last 24 hours with Korda as well against.
I don't know where you are, but I mean that was just I didn't know if he made it, but he did, and one of the most ridiculous winners I've seen. I think from
Okay, I'm gonna
Jarry.
I'm gonna be a point behind you. So I'm guessing it's 15 all where I am.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. So it's the next point.
all
I
right,
I
let me
still
let me
chose
watch them.
this. I still chose the stream that's like a bit further behind.
No, it's fine. If I quite like it where it like if it was something slightly different, then I'm just watching this point right now. Yeah, it's a pretty good rally right now. Run around forehand for Dimitrov. Now it's a slice from Dimitrov. Already seen quite a few of those today. Oh, nice from Jarry. Wow. It's one of those that you're not even sure if it lands in or not. It's
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't sure until I saw the
quite
scoreboard, but
flat
that's
and cross
ridiculous.
court. Yeah, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Um, so you were talking about Maroshan
The,
Hurkacz. What
the, the
exactly was
last
the?
24 hours or so, 36
Uh-huh.
hours, we've had a couple of really good matches and very tight affairs. Sebi Korda, who relinquished leads, I think, on a couple of occasions in the
Yeah.
deciding set in 2 different ways, and yet managed to still pull through against Ben Shelton. And yeah, and the other one, of course, being Marozsan against Hurkacz. How impressed have you been with Marozsan, particularly on the hard court here in Shanghai?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta love this performance in terms of giving us confidence that he's gonna play well on all surfaces. I mean, theoretically, it was always possible because he has such a quick game, right? I mean, he just steps into the court, takes everything on a half volley, basically ends the point in 3 or 4 shots. But he was never really playing off clay all that much. I mean, he literally has like 90% of his career matches on clay. He had a couple of big challenger runs indoors, so it seemed possible. Then again, like when he played at the Australian Open, for example, this year, or generally at the beginning of the year, he wasn't doing well at all on hard. So this is great, especially the fact that he won 4 matches in a row and gave such comprehensive displays, which with his playstyle can be tough to just repeat a performance, repeat a singular peak performance. He actually was able to do that. When it comes to the Hurkacz match, maybe it wasn't his best, maybe he wasn't serving as well as he was most of the week, and that's something that was really like imperative for him, I think,
Mm.
against Hurkacz. With Hurkacz being in like half of his return games, you have to somehow pull it off, but and actually pressure his serve a lot. But that's not going to be up to you. So I think it was a rough matchup for him. Probably big servers are going to be trouble for Marozsan, but still, obviously, an amazing event and something that also is going to give him so many points and then help him stabilize on the main tour for next year.
Yeah, the drop shot that sort of
Yeah.
he used quite a lot against Carlos in Rome. It's a lot more difficult on a court like this in Shanghai, right?
Yeah, there's less opportunities for it for sure. It bounces different. The movement is different.
Mm.
Definitely less opportunities for it. I think against Hurkacz he probably used it like 6, 7 times, maybe netted a few more of them than usual for sure. There
Hmm.
were a couple where I was like, okay, Marozsan's. You see that Marozsan's setting up for a drop shot, and you're like, okay, the point is done. Hurkacz probably doesn't even run for it, and it nets. It meets the net. However, yeah, I just think there's less opportunities for it, and partially that's why maybe I thought that he wasn't going to be as effective, but obviously he doesn't actually have to use the drop shot to end the point. It's just good to have it, and he will still be aiming to do that. But yeah, clearly when it's faster, the focus becomes something else. Whereas maybe on clay, it's just such a much more versatile and a tool that you can use a lot more often.
I saw your tweet about Sebi Korda yesterday.
Uh huh.
Quite complimentary regarding his year in terms of obviously largely injury hit for his year, and yet I think he might make the top 20. Was it if he wins this tournament?
I mean, basically, if he beats Hurkacz, he's already in the ATP in the top 20 in the race.
Okay.
I think he is at like 21 right now.
Oh, in the race,
So,
yeah, yeah.
it would be a very good achievement given that, yeah, he had like 6 months where he didn't do all that much. Well, Winston-Salem semis, I guess, and Queen's Club semis, but the last three slams, he only won one match.
Mm.
There was also that 3 month span between the end of January and the end of April when he didn't play at all. So I mean, this clearly tells you that there's going to be a lot room to. I mean, a lot more. A lot of room to improve his ranking. Also, I mean, obviously there's Australia and there's Adelaide, right? So he drops like 510 points in January, but after that, for a few months, he is like all clear. And I think he has shown this year that if he was injury free, he probably makes like, I don't know. Top 10 is kind of subjective. I mean, I don't know. I saw someone saying that if he doesn't get yesterday on my Twitter, I think that if he doesn't get hurt in January, he makes the year championships, and that it's safe to assume that. I don't think it's safe to assume that. That's consistency and like mental toughness that maybe
Mm.
we are not sure if he would have had. You need to have over 3,000 points after all. But yeah, I think top 15 or something like that. That's something that definitely looks like it was very likely if he didn't get hurt. But there's no harm really because he is playing very well again and probably should be among the main contenders to fight for stuff like that in the next season. Of course, again, provided that there's no more issues.
Yeah, he is someone who I think um, has been. We've got an eye on in terms of the the anxiety or lack of experience or inability to cope with the big moments in big matches. I'm thinking a double breakup against Rafa in Indian Wells last year. Perhaps the
Astana
Djokovic,
final.
the Astana final, yeah, which was very recently, of course.
Yeah.
And also, of course, perhaps you could even look at Djokovic in Adelaide, although I think the match point from memory that he had there was not really winnable, and Djokovic was on top from the minute he served. But yeah, he is someone in that respect. I mean, I guess until he starts winning titles regularly, because I don't think even just sort of one smallish title would banish it. But if he did start getting in a groove of picking up a couple of titles a year, which I think he should be, should be doing it with his ability. That will help banish that. I mean, because I was going to say, you might say, yeah, well, what about a Grand Slam semi-final or final? Well, to be honest with you, with the exception of Djokovic and maybe Alcaraz and perhaps Medvedev, that applies to everyone on tour. That we're still not quite sure about Tsitsipas's nerve when he's a breakup in a fifth set of a Grand Slam because he's not been there yet, and you could say the same for certainly for Zverev and many others in and around that circle, if you like, but yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a given, but it does make sense to me, those that suggested that Korda could have made Turin this year or could make Turin next year with a healthy year. He was certainly the one in Australia on that side of the draw that I thought could ask Djokovic the most questions as the draw was starting to thin out. I know you could say the same for Medvedev, but the Medvedev in January was very different to the Medvedev from February onwards, basically. Medvedev going out to Korda, to me, kind of made sense when it happened. Bearing in mind, I mean, I remember seeing Medvedev in Adelaide against Djokovic, and it wasn't even a match. And yet when they played each other in Dubai 5 weeks later, I guess it was very different.
It
Anyway,
wasn't even a match in the other
well, I
in the
know.
other guy's favor. Yeah,
That's bookended their three matches I think they had this year.
yeah.
But it's also bookended the Medvedev sort of year in a way, in that it started not great, just like it ended 2022 with the 3 defeats in Turin, albeit all very close. And then it's bookended with that loss there in New York, because he's not obviously done amazingly since then. But who knows? He may yet have a crowning glory to his year. Dimitrov here on my screen has 3 game points. I'm going to bring up the score on the screen. In fact, it's 40-15 now, I see. Yeah. Oh, anyway, we'll have a changeover in a minute, and or possibly in a minute, unless Jarry sort of gets himself back in this game, and I will have a couple of other questions for you before we then get to sort of the mid part of this set. I haven't been talking too much about the match, because apart from a couple of nice backhands from Dimitrov and a wonderful forehand cross court from Jarry, it has been fairly comfortable for both players on serve. In fact, Dimitrov has now held. Any other? Let's have a quick 60 seconds on Carlos, because I think it's funny. You and Vanch have this Carlos and Iga show, and I think in the various parts of the year, but particularly post Wimbledon, there have been sort of some questions, some what's up with Karlov, what's up with Iga moments. I think we're slightly, obviously, bigger on the what's up with Carlos bandwagon than Iga right now, because she's just won a 1,000.
Iga just had her best week of the season, probably. So yeah,
Right, exactly. So, yeah, what's up with Carlos? Is there anything up with him?
I don't think there's any real pessimism that we can take out of this. He lost to Sinner in Beijing, obviously a pretty tough matchup, and he also lost to Dimitrov, who was like peaking, and was sort of roaming around that win the whole year, hovering, around these players like Alcaraz, Djokovic, Sinner, Zverev, Medvedev. I think he was like a combined 0-11 against them this year, which basically would account for like half his losses. I think. By the way, Tennis TV seems to be down, so I had to change to that faster stream, and you're gonna see another fantastic shot soon. However, what I was talking about is that basically these players accounted for like half the losses that Dimitrov has had this year, which again proves the consistency of his season. And yeah, he was sort of waiting, actually even more than he has had. How many? Let me count it. Like 18, 18 losses this year, and 11 of them to these 5 players. So again, that really, right? Am I counting right? 4 against Zverev, 2 against Alcaraz, 2 against Djokovic, 2 against Sinner, and 1 against Medvedev. Yeah, so 11 of them to these 5 players. So he was really roaming, like hovering around them, and he finally got that win. So I don't think there's really much to worry about. Personally, the number one thing, I know, Carlos has said that it's like a big priority for him right now. But what else is really there for him to achieve other than, competing well at the ATP Finals, where he's going to be appearing for the first time? Yeah, now you see that backhand flick pass,
Yeah.
sort of, if you may.
So a short ball, Jarry comes in on it inside out, I think.
Yeah,
And
that's a Dimitrov special, right? I mean, he's hit this shot so many times too. And
sort of backhand reflex defensive shot. In fact, he was just inside the baseline himself, so he was kind of in no man's land, but manages to get a racket on it, and it turns
yeah,
out to be a sensational winner down the line. I agree with everything. I mean, just broadly, Carlos will be fine. He could lose every match for the rest of the year, and he's still won Wimbledon. He'll still go into Australia as the second favourite, I would imagine, and could yet have a sensational 2024. Whatever happens this year, it probably won't affect my
yeah,
thoughts on his mid to long term career. The only thing I will say is I wonder if his team have some regrets about his US Open build up in terms of the fact that he played obviously Canada and Cincinnati. And it'll be interesting to see what they do next year, because I think that it's always interesting to see probably his there's an intrigue to me regarding Carlos's Grand Slam build-ups. I remember in Madrid asking him if he was going to play Rome, bearing in mind he pulled out. And I think I asked him just after he won his semi-final in Madrid, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to play Rome." So that was like, okay, cool. Because he didn't the year before. Whereas someone like Tsitsipas, who just Tsitsipas is playing every tournament on tour. He's even talking about the fact that he's injured, and there's an obligation to play certain 1000s in North America or other 1000s like the year. So I just think that there's an intrigue about his, and I see that his Australia build-up is going to be basically nothing in terms of tournaments. He's just going to go into Australia without playing United Cup, without playing Adelaide, without playing any of those other tournaments. I think there's one in India as well. He's just going to go in and hope, I guess, that the first couple of matches are going to give him enough to get him in the groove. And what that suggests to me, I know it's a different part of the year, but that suggested to me that they may have some regrets about perhaps playing Canada and Cincinnati going into New York, because I think with each match that passed in New York, there were sort of growing concerns about his fitness and his movement. But I could be wrong, and he may play Washington next year and completely surprise us all. But I just wonder if his team are thinking maybe we should have gone for the Djokovic route, albeit that they're very different stages in their career.
yeah. But now he doesn't play a single match. I mean, they've done it before. 2021, he played nothing before the Australian Open. It looked fine. I think they just probably want like a longer off season. In 2021, that off season was spent on getting him to
Yeah,
become like a physical monster. He added
yeah,
so much muscle mass.
yeah.
Whereas right now we don't really know what the focus will be. But yeah, I think basically the idea is to have a longer off season and actually be able to train, be able to introduce something. I don't know what that will be, but with the off season that we have right now, so like players are, let's say, finishing at the Davis Cup finals or one of the last challengers, and then basically in like a month they are back on the court again, or maybe even less than a month, because I think the United Cup last year started at like 27th, 28th maybe of December, right?
Yeah, I think I saw yesterday 26, but
Possibly, yeah. I remember there were some matches on 27 on the 27th or
I
the
mean, I think it's
28th.
26 this coming one, the one coming up.
Okay, then that would
Yeah.
make sense because probably one day earlier, right? Because
Yes.
of
Yeah.
the calendar, because of how the
Calendar, yeah.
calendar works. So yeah, personally, yeah, I agree that there's like no concerns whatsoever regarding his future prospects, even if he barely wins a match from here. Well, maybe if he barely wins a match, but certainly the Asian swing was, even if slightly worse, I mean, definitely worse than what he's doing most of the season. It wasn't like a full-on disappointment. He still had a couple of great matches, probably especially against Evans in Shanghai, and it's not like he played all that poorly against Dimitrov either. So I don't
Yeah.
think it matters.
We had our first break point of the match. Jarry
Yeah.
saved it with an unreturnable. And in the end, actually won the next couple of points fairly easily as well. By the way, to those of you tuning in, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe and also get voting in our poll. That kind of makes sense to me, 64-36. Sometimes we can see some unusual results in our polls. But the thing with the poll, funny enough, Damien, when it comes to voting on a tennis match, is that it can be quite deceiving because you might think to yourself, well, this is a 60-40 match for me, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at the poll and it's like 90-10. But that's because everybody approached the poll thinking it's 60-40. So they're going to still go with, the most likely one. So suddenly you look at a poll and it's 90-10 and you're like, oh, that doesn't bear out. It's a 60-40 for me. But if 10 people approach that for 60-40 thought, then you're going to actually get 100 in one direction. But yeah.
Speaking of polls, whoever voted for John to shave his beard first, they were right.
They were right. In fact, to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be so close, not the shave, but the
poll.
the timing. No, the timing of our. I was almost going to do a very short clip, again, no pun intended, of me shaving because I thought it might even be minutes or hours between us. I did it on Monday night, I think. Monday, I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure I had it in my head. I must remember the more or less time. It was late on Monday night I did it, because I was thinking if you did it Monday afternoon or whatever, it might come down to that. I'm going to try and find the poll that you're referring to. Oh, by the way, I'm off to Monastir next week to cover the 250 in Tunisia.
Ooh.
Yeah.
First time in Africa or not?
No, I've been to Morocco and I've been to South Africa as well. But first time in Tunisia. And of course, main question really is, will Ons Jabeur be there? Because obviously a tournament in Tunisia, pulling out, of course, from the tournament this week in Asia. The poll, by the way, 61% went for you to shave off the beard first. I think that pretty much didn't change from like a week ago because that was always about 60-40 as well.
I wondered about the timing of Jaber's withdrawal because she basically did everything that she needed from that event, which is get to number 6 in the WTA race.
Okay.
Get ahead of Vondroushova and Muchova. And I guess that's sort of all she could have taken from that. I mean, of course, she could have won the title as well. But I guess, Monastir should be a priority for her. Last year, she lost to someone, Anli, maybe?
Yeah.
Was it Anli? I don't know.
She'll be
that's a guess.
very keen to win the title there. I mean, listen, there's a couple of things to talk about in terms of whether she'll even be there, but she'll be very keen. But there's also another element of, again, a bit like this.
Claire Liu, not Anli. She played Anli in the opening round. She lost to Claire Liu in the quarters.
Claire Liu. But there's also an element of her being there and playing a couple of matches and staying healthy, and really trying to focus on at least getting out of the group stage in Cancun. But she's had a injury hit year. There haven't been many periods, probably Wimbledon aside, there hasn't been really a tournament where I've looked at her and thought she's super comfortable. I remember the build
before twisting her ankle in Stuttgart, or maybe even after, right? She had some.
I mean, I'm thinking about pre Stuttgart, definitely, because of the Australian Open when she got injured, blah blah blah.
No, but later there was Charleston, and then she was also looking strong in Stuttgart, and then obviously had that ankle twist.
Yeah, true. But it didn't last long.
No, 2 events basically, 1.5.
And Stuttgart was, I mean, there was sort of chat between her and Iga in the semi-final. I think she was playing really well at that point as well. And Iga says, "Don't worry, we'll see you in the final in Paris."
Just 3 games basically. So
yeah.
They only played 3 games. And
then it was like a race to Paris, and what kind of, should she even play in Paris? Is she going to be fit there? And she actually had a better French Open than I anticipated. Certainly a better French Open than she had the previous year, when basically we were all turning our TVs to start the tournament, and she was already out on the Sunday. And I think she was a Sunday lunch. In fact, I know she was a Sunday lunchtime match, and she was out in 2022. But yeah, so but coming to this withdrawal recently, yes, of course, my first thoughts were because I'd already sort of had an eye on Monastir and stuff, and I thought, Monastir now that could be really flat for the tournament, blah blah blah. But then I started to think about it. I saw that she won her match and then pulled out the next one, and then I thought, I think she's going to be keen to. If there's a chance of her being on a practice court next week, then I think there's a good chance that she'll play Monastir as well. I'm not here to announce Craig Tiley-esque in that she's going to be in Monastir next week, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a phone call and that'll be the case. But I'm not super concerned about this withdrawal from the event in Asia. I think there's still a good chance, albeit it's probably 50-50 rather than 100% as it probably would have been a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if getting to number 6 in the WTA race was such a priority for her. I mean, of course, it changes the group scenarios for Cancun. If it was a priority, I mean, I wonder if it played into her decision. I don't know. Yeah, she should be. Given what sort of image she has in Tunisia and general in the Arab world, she definitely should be very determined to show up there. And if it will be possible, she'll probably play. When you said Monastir for the first time, by the way, I was like so confused because Monastir is one of these places which just hosts 25k and 15k ITFs on a weekly basis, and I was like, "What are you going to Monastir to cover a 15k?" But then I realized there's a WTA 250. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one was last year. I think Mertens won it last year. The inaugural event, as you said, that Jabeur went out, I think, in the quarterfinals. I think it was, wasn't it? Last year, and she'll be keen to improve on that. But yeah, so yeah, there we go. 250 there. That's a newish one on the calendar. I wouldn't be surprised if even Jabeur's emergence had an influence on that as a tennis player.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it's like an event that only really showed up because of that. Just like Warsaw, I mean, for Świątek.
Yeah.
And last year there was a bit of a theme of these women not winning their home events, but this year maybe Świątek started it in Warsaw, and now
maybe
Jabeur will finish it off in Monastir.
Okay, Dimitrov is yet to face a break point. He's at 40-30 now. It was 40 love, so it's a couple of points here for Jarry in a row to apply a tiny bit of pressure to the Bulgarian. Talking of Bulgaria, that was albeit 24 hours ago, so I could be behind on this news. It seemed like Sofia, I think, was going to be the most likely destination to replace Tel Aviv.
It was announced, basically. They started selling tickets. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, tennis and organization. Who knows if they start selling tickets in Bulgaria and then they say, no, we're actually going to play in Romania.
No, but it's not really the organization's fault at this stage, right? I mean, it's due to the situation in Israel. So.
Oh no, I don't mean that. I just mean that no, of course that's beyond their control and makes total sense.
So like we can forgive them a bit of a mess with that, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, but I'm talking about the selling tickets in Bulgaria and
speculating.
They suddenly say no, sorry, we made a mistake. It's a Bulgaria in Sacramento that we're actually playing. There's always random towns in the US that you're like, what? You've got a St. Petersburg in Florida. What are you doing having a St. Petersburg in Florida? There's just no need. Talking of which, there's a small town called Harburg, and it's about 30 kilometers from Hamburg. And I'm thinking, don't do that. Don't do that, because you're just going to get people turning up in Harburg thinking, well, I don't see where the town hall is. I don't see where where the famous district St. Pauli is, for example. It just give it a completely different name. Or if you're going to have a name like that, it's very similar to Hamburg, put it in a completely different part of the country. Although then you could just end up in the completely different part of the country. At least if you go to Harburg and you get it wrong, you've only got a 20-minute train journey, I guess.
Well, I actually wanted to say something different, but I also have to bring up the two Halles in Germany, right? Because that always confuses
Right.
people. And I
Yeah.
know of stories where people went to the Halle that's close to Leipzig, I think, and then
Yeah.
realized that it's actually the Halle near Dortmund, near
Yeah.
Bielefeld.
Yeah.
I almost had this myself. I remember when I
Me
went to
too.
Halle in 2019, we were looking at where it is, and we were like, okay, that's pretty close to the Polish border. And then
Yeah.
suddenly there was some moment of realization when we just realized that it's so much further away, but we still decided to go. And with the cities in the US, I basically wanted to say that in tennis this is especially relevant because St. Petersburg, Florida is like the headquarters of the ATP, and also Rome, Georgia hosts a challenger, which always confuses people. So yeah, in tennis this is definitely relevant.
I remember there was a story I saw on a news agency about Georgia, and I can't remember exactly what it was. It was about a factory in Georgia. I think there'd been a fire at a factory in Georgia, and I thought, oh, okay, that could be interesting. And I started reading it, and I'm thinking, how far is it from Tbilisi? Blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
I 3/4 of the way through, factory manager Ted Smith said, "Well, we're lucky that nobody got injured or whatever." And I'm thinking, Ted Smith in Georgia? What a name! But yes, of course, it ended up being Georgia in the US. There is another one as well. Oh, by the way, Halle, yeah, I had the same thought as you, but it ended up being the other way around. I didn't go this year, but in the end, but I had it earmarked, let's say, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, near Leipzig, and then quickly, to my pleasant surprise, it's like, oh, it's in North Rhine-Westphalia, so you know. By car, you can get North Rhine-Westphalia is densely populated, but it's not huge, and you can pretty much get from one side to the other in an hour, hour and a half. But Halle, also Germany being Germany and public transport being so difficult, let's say, it's still a good 2 or 3 hours, no more than 2 hours. So a good 3 hours before you can get there from where I live with public transport. It's like 2 trains, 3 trains, a bus and a walk. So yeah, there we go. There was something else I was going to say on this. Oh, in terms of there's another one I've got. It's Switzerland with Lucerne and Lausanne. I'm familiar with one or two stories, but I'm sure there's plenty more of people going to Lucerne when they want to go to Lausanne or the other way around. In Switzerland, and they are in very different parts of the country. One in the French-speaking part, and one in the German-speaking part. So yeah, world, come on, sort it out.
Yeah, with Georgia, there was like I had a class at the university where we were talking about some cuisine or something like that, and there was something mentioned about Georgia, and I started talking about khinkali, hachapuri, but of course, it was I wanted to do that. It was a joke,
Okay,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, people thought that I
Double
maybe
double
got confused.
entendre is the word for that type of joke. Do you know that expression, double
Hmm,
entendre?
I know, but I wonder if it's applicable.
The reason why I say it is when it's two meanings or two thought processes. Like if I said to you, like it's almost like the word pole having two meanings, but I'm doing a joke somehow, or or clip as I used earlier. Um, I think it's
Yeah,
when you're
sort of, I
sending
guess.
someone in one direction as part of the joke, but you're really going somewhere else. I think. Um, Anyway, 15:30 here on the Jarry serve. Although actually, I can see on the screen things have moved on.
Yeah, but
And
still
Jarry's
2 points away from the set.
yeah.
But we can see that this match is just extremely close so far. When Jarry has some issues, blast the serve, nothing really happens. There's been some moments of Dimitrov magic, but they haven't really amounted to much. I guess that flick pass that he had actually gave him a break point eventually. I mean,
Hmm.
eventually, because it was the first point of the game, but obviously Jarry saved that with a booming first serve, just like he did the previous 2 points in this one. And actually, I'm gonna spoil it for you, but there's gonna be another ace down the tee, so it's actually
Well,
five
I've just seen an
already.
ace out wide from a point or two before.
Yeah,
But yes, as you said, the one or two moments that Jarry's been in trouble, even in this game, he's pulled out a big first serve.
it also hasn't really amounted to much in terms of viewing excitement, to be honest.
No, I mean, I know we've
Yeah,
been talking about various other Shanghai and very non-Shanghai related topics, but it has partly been because there's not been too much intrigue apart from that break
yeah.
point for Dimitrov aside. Let us know in the chat if you've ever had a confusing moment with cities like and towns, and have you ever actually been to the completely wrong place when you were trying to get to somewhere? San Diego, no, not San Diego, San Jose. I mean, that would be a big one as well. If you went to San Jose, California, but you were hoping to go to Costa Rica, and you turned up wondering why everyone was speaking English. Although perhaps you might be deceived for the first part of your journey there. Maybe you hear lots of Spanish there and think, oh, okay, I am actually in San Jose, Costa Rica. But eventually you find out you're in San Jose is California, I think.
Probably. Yeah, something along the southern border. I think there's a lot of that, right? With like cities on the southern border of the U.S. being named the same as some in Mexico, and then it
Hmm.
gets a little confusing. There's this tennis website that I use for like checking, well, not checking results, but like checking records and etc. And it still has Santa Fe, for example. There was a recent challenger in Santa Fe as an American one, whereas the real Santa Fe was actually, was it Bolivia? I think it was Bolivia,
Okay, yeah.
maybe. So yeah, it happens.
Nurlan here asks a question at 11:19, and by 11:20:22, he's already lost patience that we haven't responded. Anyway, is Iga the only person who comes back home and works on technical stuff for 2 weeks and immediately corrects them? Plus, her serving has not improved. Um,
Um,
I think every player, not every player, lots of players, I think are doing stuff to try and improve. I'm sure Tsitsipas has done drills on the backhand and the slice and the return.
I mean, she definitely isn't like the heaviest scheduler. She doesn't play all that much compared to other players, which
Mhm.
is by design for sure, but immediately corrects them. What exactly is the thing that she immediately corrected after a period of training? I'm not really sure. And I do think her serving has improved this year.
Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it is decent. In Tokyo whole week, I mean, so Tokyo, sorry, Beijing, she was serving very well. Doha, maybe especially at the beginning of the year. At least the first serve is not attackable anymore, let's say that. The second serve still very much in
Right.
danger, but the first serve is getting way less attackable. You don't really see someone like Garcia last year, right, who was crushing her first serve. This year she couldn't really do that. So I do think her serving has improved. Although I wonder, yeah, what's the sort of thing that she could improve for like 2 weeks. But it is a bit of a problem, generally speaking, in tennis, that the calendar is so heavy that players don't really get the chance to work on anything. I mean, you just mostly recover from a tournament to tournament and play the tournaments. Some players like that. I mean, some players don't like practicing and they just keep playing, keep playing. But yeah, certainly no breaks in the calendar means that it's actually very tough to just roll back home and yeah, stay there for a couple of weeks and actually introduce something to your game. Also, yeah, like Świątek and the other top players are like the only competitors who actually can do it because they don't have to play every week. I mean, they have so many points from other events, right?
Yeah.
That they're not really scared for anything. I mean, they
Hmm.
yeah, they're not fighting for any ranking goals. Whereas if you're not getting into a certain category of events, for example, you have to play qualies for them, or I don't know, you're fighting for even the WTA ATP finals. You don't really have the luxury of being able to return home and practice for a couple of weeks.
Yes, indeed.
Pegula is an interesting example as well because Max just mentioned her,
Mhm.
and she's still playing in Seoul, and I sort of wonder why. But you know, Tika Pegula, she likes competing. She has played like over 100 matches this year across singles, doubles for sure, mixed as well. She's played like 11, which is definitely more than most players. So I get it because it's Pegula, but yeah, Seoul is basically useless for her right now. Like I know it's a title, I know it's to 50 points, but just from her standpoint, I would definitely be resting until Cancun. But you know, again, it's Pegula. She loves it, so she's doing it, and she is in the semis already, with the rest of the field looking like very beatable. Let's say for her.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a hot favorite, I think, going into that tournament. Um, Regarding the scheduling, did I, in my delirium caused by these night shifts I've been
Night
doing,
shifts, yeah.
did I dream, or was it a reality? There was some kind of women's tennis statement about too many tournaments. I think I saw something.
Women's
Um,
tennis statement, as in like a
or
player,
maybe
or
some women, maybe there's more, maybe there was just two women that said the same thing about, basically there's too much tennis on the chat on the
I think
tour. And
possibly some people were talking about, but I don't know if players. I don't know if there's an example they can come up with, but I know some people were talking about like the sort of superfluous nature of the events post Beijing before Cancun. You know that
okay,
that you could almost really give them 1 week of rest after Beijing and then have the WTA finals, and then give one more week of rest before the Beijing King Cup finals. But like before the WTA sort of gets their grip on organizing the WTA finals and Beijing King Cup finals, we can't really pull it off, it seems.
yeah. I
Until
know
until it happens, yeah, we won't really be able to pull it off.
Nerland's nuance is sometimes difficult to detect at the best of times, but of course, in written form, it's even harder. But yeah, no, we normally understand you, Nerland. Don't worry. Well, normally maybe it's like exaggeration. But yes, it's coming here from this tweet. Story to follow, but the majority of the top 20 send the WTA a demand letter where they're stating that the tour is becoming incredibly demanding, creating physical and mental stresses, and not sustainable in the long run. So yeah, I tell you what, we'll come back to this though because we are into a tie break here, and
Yes.
I'm gonna let you talk us through the tie break, and I'll be back in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and just to Nurlan, I basically wasn't sure if you were sarcastic or not, so I sort of decided to take it at face value, and just go ahead with it. Especially because he said like plus her serving is not improved, and that yeah. But anyway, um, yeah. Let's see what happens here. Dimitrov has won the first point. As John stated earlier, I mean we haven't really been talking about the match, but that's because not much is happening. Like Jarry can be a little rough to watch at times for sure, with just serving and killing every point at first glance. I do remember that forehand on the run cross court. I also, of course, remember that Dimitrov backhand flick, which is a very it's a bit of a trademark of his, I think. But otherwise, we haven't really had any highlights in the opening set, especially in terms of how the games were going, with Jarry getting out of trouble on a couple of occasions with big serving. We'll see if he can do that again, because right now he will actually have to win some return points. He missed his +1 forehand on the second point of the tiebreak. But he's back there with an ace. But obviously, right now, only winning his serve points is not going to be enough to win the tiebreak. He will need to also get a mini break back. This is where maybe some nerves come in. This is where maybe we see where we maybe see some more exciting points and tense moments in this one. Dimitrov is in control of the next point, but Jarry is, getting him a pretty steady, heavy ball. But yeah, he just stopped that. He decided to rip that backhand cross court and completely mistimes it. So Dimitrov 3-1. And I guess that's the sort of tennis, obviously, that Dimitrov also wants to play against someone like that. Spread the court well, don't go for too much, and eventually you'll probably get the error. Although also you kind of have to avoid being too passive at that and not getting them on the move, because then that sort of backhand rip that Jarry was just going for might go in. I think that serve was good from Dimitrov, so it's a nice +1 forehand. He's at the net and he cleans it up for 1 Dimitrov, and a very nice chance to clinch this set pretty soon for the Bulgarian. Even if he doesn't win a point on the Jarry serve, he still can do it with from here. He still can do it just by holding his own. It sometimes happens that the player who was a little cleaner before the tiebreak on his serve then takes the tiebreak, because that's sort of the logical thing. But of course, that's not the rule. It's just a few points. Anything can happen. I remember a set, I think it was in Zagreb, between Ivo Karlovic and Daniel Brands, where Brands just won 1 point on return and still won the set, because he won it like 7-6 and 7-4 in the tiebreak or something like that. The whole set he wasn't winning points on return, and then he still won it despite getting just one point on return down. Some really good athleticism here from Dimitrov, extending the point after Jarry inside and forehand, which I think the Chilean was hoping for a bit more advantage of that. Probably should have been at the net, honestly, right after hitting that. But Dimitrov gets to it in really good condition. He fires a forehand counter that eventually makes Jarry miss time yet another forehand. So with 5-1 up in the tiebreak, that's we're getting to a point where Dimitrov would be very, very disappointed to lose this one. Just needs to win 2 of the next 3 points on his own serve, provided he doesn't get any on the Jarry serve. So should be he's looking fine to take it. It's just a matter of whether he's going to be able to keep performing, keep executing it well. So far hasn't missed a trick in this tiebreak. The only point that Jarry has won so far was an ace out wide on the third point of the tiebreaker. But let's see. The changeover is done. The change of ends, maybe more so, and Jarry is gonna serve again. It's a good first serve. He tries to slam his +1 drive volley, and he gets it to a point where Dimitrov maybe could have done something, but it was a very reactive, tough shot. So this time he cannot flick this passing shot over the net. 5-2 Dimitrov, 2 serves. And again, he only really needs to take 2 of his next 3 service points. So he's in a really good spot here. Despite losing that previous point. Gonna be a second serve though, so maybe some sort of a window opens up for Nicolas Jarry. Jarry should have been challenging that serve, I think. I don't think it's gonna be allowed right now because it's too late. He actually waited for his return, but that second serve from Dimitrov was very close to the line. Personally, I think it could have been out. I don't know if we're gonna see the call on the screen. Sometimes they show it to us, even though no one has requested the challenge. But no, we won't even get to see it on the feed. But I think it was very tight, and who knows. But anyway, as it stands, probably a second serve on the line, and Dimitrov is 4 set points up. Yesterday, we had Sebi Korda blowing a 6-1 lead, only to win the tiebreak 8-6 in the deciding tiebreak. Looks like Dimitrov will not make that mistake. Just a very clean serve again, +1 inside out forehand, and Jarry's slice back and pass doesn't make it over the net. 7-2 Dimitrov just did everything right in the tiebreak, but also wasn't really forced to produce all that much, right? Go Dimi, says Terry. Who else is happy that Pegula was expecting super fast courts and balls? She got disappointed. You mean in Cancun or in Seoul? I actually don't have no idea what the conditions in Cancun will be. There's been some I don't know, some ITFs in Cancun, right? But most of them I don't think were streamed, so I'm not really sure what the conditions are there. Obviously, it also isn't going to be the same venue, I guess, or like at least they are building the stands. It's not altitude that we know, right? Unlike Guadalajara, but I don't know if you are referring to Seoul or Cancun. But certainly, yeah, super fast balls and courts. That's what Pegula will want. Um, yeah, and that's I think these last 2 days, maybe these last 3 or 4 days, are where we see that the Masters 1.5 week format is a little bloated. We only have 2 matches today, 2 matches yesterday, 2 matches tomorrow. Obviously, talking about the singles, and that's mostly when there's no women's event at the same place, right? Obviously, there's lots of WTA 250 action and WTA 500 even in Zhengzhou. There's lots of challengers, so it's not really a problem for me. But I think a lot of people will probably be complaining about that, and I think especially you can see how superfluous this extension is when you think about the fact that the top half finalist will still be playing 3 days in a row, even though we have 2 weeks for that event. John has put us some stats on the screen. I actually missed that, so we'll check them out. Yeah, nothing crazy really. Dimitrov with the sort of stats that Iga Świątek had against Samsonova in the Beijing final, right? I'm obviously 10-4, not 2-0, but if you discount the Dimitrov serve, it's like 3-3. Basically, he is playing it right. He is still serving well. He is playing the matchup right in terms of not going for too much, allowing Jarry to make the errors when he's out of when the Chilean is out of position, trying to survive against the serve, and yeah, play the perfect tiebreaker even if he actually didn't need to do all that much. And on a few of these points, especially, you could probably argue as well that the athletical advantage between them definitely made an appearance too. That's a pretty decent block return from Dimitrov, but it seems like Jarry has found the line with the inside out forehand. Risky shot there for sure, especially after losing the first point of the second set, but he manages to get it on the line. Well, it wasn't actually on the line. I did not see it clearly. Yeah, it was actually way less, a lot more margin than I thought. Never mind then. The replay sometimes shows you how wrong you were. It's a nice sliced serve from Jarry as well. He totally surprised Dimitrov with it. Dimitrov went to the tee, and even though it wasn't placed all that amazingly, the surprise factor there was basically did not allow Grigor to even touch the ball. Yeah. Dimitrov tries to take that backhand return a little earlier, but Jarry is still in control of the point, but he will get past with this nice half volley-ish forehand. And another moment where like Dimitrov's athleticism really comes to play. The way he chased that in that +1 forehand from Jarry, got it back with a very nice forehand on the slide, and then that pass, recovering after the previous shot very quickly as well. This is probably, this is really where the difference is between them, right? So Dimitrov has been doing well to like play very efficient, clean tennis and just capitalize on that. Will he get an opportunity here? Ooh, another time where Jarry plays a decent +1 forehand, goes to the net, but the approach is just a little too, I don't want to say tentative, but yeah, the placement just isn't fully there. And Dimitrov is very quick to his backhand corner this time, making this backhand cross-court pass that Jarry cannot get a clean hit off. So breakpoint Dimitrov, and that's the second one in this set. This match, right? I would have to check, but that's how I remember it from the opener. The previous one was saved with a great serve down the tee. This time it's a serve out wide. Dimitrov will be regretting not getting it over the net, though. He had the block return. He just nets it. Obviously, it's tough against the Jarry first serve, but this was maybe a bit of an opportunity, especially compared to the previous one, of course, to the previous breakpoint that the Chilean saved with just a serve that you couldn't really get back into the court at all. But, it's still news, not out of the woods, and we'll see. One break here feels like it could end the match with how easily Dimitrov has been winning most of his service games. But, well, there have been some moments when he was like 30-all or 15-30 even, I think maybe on one occasion at the beginning of the set. But it never really, of the first set, of course, and it never really amounted to much. Anyway, second serve from Jarry on the deuce point. So Dimitrov short slicing it, trying to get Jarry lost a bit in the sort of technical game. It's working okay, but that's a very good shot from the Chilean. He managed to get this sharp angle on the backhand crosscourt. Dimitrov shows it to the umpire. Shows the mark and sort of suggests that maybe it was out, but I don't really know why he didn't challenge then. But I don't think it was out. No. I think definitely caught the line. And he was trying to, out of position, hit this topspin backhand down the middle, which was way long. So Jarry to go one game up, and that would be the first time this match that he's leading in a set since Dimitrov was the one who opened the opener, haha, and then also led in the tiebreak right away. I think that serve is out, so perhaps one more look at Jarry's second serve for Dimitrov. Can he do something with it? Obviously, it's still one of the best second serves in the game, so it does not have to be easy whatsoever. It's a decent kicker from the Chilean. They're again playing slice against sometimes the slice from Jarry or the topspin backhand. Dimitrov trying to keep him in that corner, and he gets his inside out opportunity. But wow, that's a great shot from Jarry as well. Dimitrov thought he was in control of the point after he was the first to get to his inside out forehand, but a big counter from Jarry gives him the point and the game as well. Pretty long start to the second set. Jarry's son stealing the show, yeah. There's been a lot of pictures I've seen on Twitter and like videos of him. Oh, Jasmine Paolini has just won the first 9 games against Laura Ziegmund. That's interesting. Maybe gonna be a double bagel there. I think this week we already had one on the women's side with Pavlyuchenkova double bageling someone that I cannot remember right now. Jana Fett, right? Yeah, Jana Fett. Of Wozniacki match point blowing fame, you can say. I've also been watching Yuan playing against Buskova a little bit. Yuan is basically trying her best not to take the first set. She has already wasted 6 set points, but might get more opportunities. She is again 2 points away. Dimitrov started the next game well too. 30 love. This one's going to be a let, but it seems like with 30 love should be quite simple for him from here. We'll see. Oh, I wanted to check how all the did he miss it? I think he missed that plus one inside in. I wanted to check how smoothly Dimitrov was winning his service games in the opening set, but I think there was like 1-15-30, right? Yeah, and that from that point onwards, it was mostly smooth sailing. He's basically only lost 6 plus 3 is 9. 9 points on his serve so far, and has won 90% on first serve. Actually, it's the same situation for Jarry. Their serving numbers are really close to each other, actually. There's like a bit of a difference in terms of the second serve, but that's not a huge sample size. 7 out of 13, 6 out of 15. It's pretty comparable. But it's Dimitrov that has had 2 breakpoints so far. Does Humbert have a good chance of beating Rublev? I mean, he literally did that last week, right? Well, last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess, with this 1.5 week format in Beijing. He defeated Rublev, so yeah, obviously he does. In terms of like their whole head-to-head, it's 3-2 for Rublev right now. Humbert also has that insane record against the top 10, which is basically an insane record against the whole 1996 to 1999 born generation. I'm sort of talking like Vanch now, but we can probably talk about the Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Zverev, Rublev generation, and that's who Humbert has a very good record against. I don't think he's played Carlos. He has played Djokovic though, and he lost to him. But no, obviously, but he has defeated Medvedev, Rublev, Tsitsipas, Zverev, Ruud many times. And might as well have a shot at doing that again. Someone who has a shot at doing something again is that UA1, whom I mentioned earlier, and now has like her eighth or seventh set point against Buskova in Seoul, I think that is. I struggle to find the difference between these events for the WTA this week: Zhengzhou, Hong Kong, Seoul. Even though I'm watching the match, I actually had to stop and think about whether it's Seoul or. Yeah, but it's another set point not taken. Anyway, Nicolas Jarry now cruising towards an easy hold in the third game of the second set. Gonna be an ace as well, so he cleans it up in style. 2-1. And they still have not broken each other, with just Dimitrov having 2 breakpoints and not having, not getting to play a point, basically. Either getting an unreturned serve from Jarry that was basically impossible to get to, or this block return that stopped, well, more or less a little below the tape of the net. Yeah, I kind of fear for UA1 if she's gonna lose this set in the tiebreak, honestly, because that would mean that the second set will be tough on her mentally, I think. But she's still hanging in there. Deuce. It's 6-5 for her, by the way, and Buskova is serving. Yeah, and Sigmund also won a game against Paolini. I'm looking at the other results because we have a break right now in Dimitrov Jarry. Obviously, it's not a long break, it's just the changeover. And John is back, I see.
Yeah, obviously it's not a break. We don't get them today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this has just all been about the tie break. I mean, even Jarry on serve, I know he's had a couple of break points, but didn't feel like a lot of jeopardy on his serve either. It was just basically a very comfortable tiebreak win for Dimitrov that set the two apart. But like you said as well, the first game of the second set with Jarry serving, there is a sort of air of vulnerability at that point, but he swatted that aside and held in the end, and now leads 2-1. Yes, so Rublev, Humbert to come, and the semi-final that's already set tomorrow is Hurkacz, which I think, as you suggested, was a slightly more exciting side of the draw, with Hurkacz there coming up against Korda. Yeah, I mean, I think Hurkacz Korda is an interesting one. Just looking at their rankings, I think they're 16 and 26 right now. But those rankings don't probably reflect, because I remember when it was like Rublev was the only top 10 player left in the draw, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, in a way, but for me, the story is and could and should be about Hurkacz and Korda. Not the story, that's the wrong word, but those are the two that. Oh, I think that was going to land out, by the way. But it was such an
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
It was such an
I
easy
think I
volley
think
that.
so too. Yeah, he just decided not to take the risk.
Yeah.
And I know we're talking about Dimitrov Jarry, but like Buskova has already saved 2 of these set points with like insane passes on the run.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
I have occasionally shared that score on the screen. Yeah.
it's not really. I mean, in a way, it's not Yuan's fault. I mean, again, Deuce, she blasts a forehand return winner, but she just cannot take that. I mean, it's like 10 set point already, I think.
Look,
Something
we've
like that.
actually got the most jeopardy Dimitrov has been on
Yeah,
serve thus far, with love 30 here.
9th set point for Yuan. Yeah, and this is love 30, so this is the moment that Jarry was waiting for. Can Dimitrov keep playing clean, efficient tennis or not?
I mean, as you said, I think there was a 15-30, and that's about all we
Yeah,
had to get excited about.
there's a
Now we.
challenge in Seoul, but I think she finally won that set. Yeah, she did.
Oh,
So
she has got the set, has she?
9 set points. Yeah, it took,
9.
but she managed to get it over the line. Nurlan isn't going to be happy because I think he's a bit of a Buskova fan, right? I mean, during the Canada Cincinnati double, we were he was like constantly telling us to talk about Buskova. I'm actually a bit of a UA1 fan, so Nurlan, we are sparring there. We are our
Yeah.
favorites are meeting there, and for now I'm winning. But of course, Buskova was like a pretty significant favorite before the match. I just thought it was way too big of an edge. Um, not much happening on these points from Dimitrov though.
No.
Just good serves. Eventually, maybe a +1 forehand, and that's been enough.
3 points in a row for the Bulgarian, and we're
Yeah.
now back at some sort of level of safety. Nurlan setting the agenda just for a change. It's almost like having a producer shouting in your ear saying, "We must talk
Mhm.
about Moskva."
Yeah, because it was like WT weekly or maybe something like that, or I don't know, maybe just a commentary stream. And Buskova was in the quarters of one of these events, I think.
Yeah,
So Nurlan was right to say that we should mention her, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess neither of us, I don't remember who the show was with, felt really excited about that run.
yeah,
Jarry will also not be too excited about that game, given that he was love 30 and then never managed to put
and he
any
had a
pressure
second.
on Dimitrov.
He had a second serve there to look at. It was
Yeah,
down the middle from Dimitrov, and very much in this rally that I'm just seeing play out.
so a slight missed opportunity for sure for the Chilean, but then again, most of these points they were over in a flash.
Mm. Have you seen the practical joke that the ATP set up for Dimitrov to play out on some of his colleagues on the
No.
tour? It's like a 5-minute clip, and he is instructing, but they don't know it's him. but he is instructing them to give Chinese phrases, and so they don't know it's him. So he's basically saying, "Tell Helga Runa to say I like to wear short shorts," for example. So then Holger
Hmm.
Runa says something in Chinese without knowing it, and he's just saying, "I like to wear short shorts." There's another one with Carlos Alcaraz, where he's basically saying, "I'm the little goat" in Chinese. And then there's another bit with Alcaraz where he's actually going, "No, you've got to go like this or something, and make this is how he's actually kind of sounding a bit like a goat as well. And then at the end of it, it's all like, ha ha ha, it was all a joke. And oh, Grigor making us laugh. It's actually better than I'm painting it, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not doing. I mean, it's not amazing either. I mean, people do get carried away with these things, go ha ha, ha aren't they so funny? And Grigor's amazing, but it's also not as bad as I'm painting it.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that I sort of realized that it has to be a bit better than your description, I would be saying that it's just cringe-worthy. But I probably won't check it out. Honestly, it doesn't seem worth checking out.
Not really, but it's
Like
also just
going out of your way, to check it out. Probably not. No.
in decades to come, if this story returns, don't relay that it was awful, but just in case, because
Yes. Yes.
maybe I'm not doing it justice, like I
I'll
said.
say that your description was awful, but the
Yeah,
actual
that's okay.
show, the
Share
actual
that.
show, yeah.
Share that with a random Pole who has no idea who I am in a dark and deep
Everyone in
part
Poland
of Poland.
has, knows you. I mean,
From my
I'm
1 month
I'm
in
on
Wrocław.
I'm well, that's one thing, but I'm also on Talking Tennis so often,
Well, yes, exactly. Yes,
and
it's
then the
almost
Poles
becoming
tune
a
in.
yes, indeed.
That's why you
Uh,
have 800 viewers every time.
I'm just at my scoreboard. The scoreboard isn't updating, but it is in fact 3-all.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, no, it is free too. I mean,
oh, it's 3-2. Is it? I thought it was 3-all.
no, it is free too, and they are sitting down now. Nothing really happening in this Jarry game as well. I mean, three
No.
unreturned serves, I think, and then there was a +1 backhand that he needed to hit pretty well, but then again, Dimitrov was so far out of the court after the return that, yeah.
I think you, for one, are pleased that the
Hmm.
Asian swing is back on the calendar, right?
Um, I don't know. I mean, why wouldn't I be pleased, right? It does give some opportunities to the players from Asia, whom a lot of them I found exciting. I find exciting. Like I
Hmm.
don't know the sort of the most recent Asian generation of Zhang, Shang, Wu, Watanuki. Of course, Wu has finished his season, but like in general, that should be a good part of the season for him. Even on the WTA side, I mean, I was just talking about UA1. So for that reason, for sure, this Asian swing was a little weirder because you had the Asian Games as well. So the
Yeah.
players were taken out of like two tournaments if they wanted to
Hmm.
compete there. So
Mm.
I am really excited to see how it looks next year with like some of the players that were there. So I don't know, Qinwen Zheng, Watanuki, Zhang competing in all of the Asian swing events, not having to make that decision. But yeah, in general, for sure, it's a good time zone for me as well. Maybe the challenger that is this week in Shenzhen isn't great because it starts at like 5 a.m. and they don't really care about the
Mm.
viewers. So it's like three matches at 5 a.m. for example today, and one at 6:30. But these main tour ones, they actually look at the time zones in Europe, and I think that's why they all start so late. So I don't really I don't really mind that. It's a nice time zone for me. When you're someone from the States, I think the Asian swing can be very tough to follow, especially if I don't know, you're in the
Mm.
West Coast, I guess. Yeah,
Mm.
then it's basically unwatchable, especially the later rounds. Because for example, right now no one on the West Coast will be awake realistically. So
So there's lots of munchies for Jarry's son. But also, I was looking at the phone that is in front. So because Jarry's son is obviously probably quite bored by this match, Jarry actually has some kind of Mr. Little Jarry has some kind of cartoon that he can watch on the phone in front of him, rather than he's probably thinking, Dad, make this a bit more exciting. Don't serve bombs all the time. Try and threaten the Dimitrov serve a bit more. Don't hit when you're in the middle of a rally and it's 40-30. Don't lose patience and hit a forehand into the net. Because if you keep doing that, I'm going to just focus on the cartoon. Although actually, when I was watching Jarry's son just then, he wasn't even focused on the cartoon. He seemed quite frustrated with that too. He was just looking around elsewhere around the stadium. Anyway, Dimitrov has held with comfort. Regarding the Asian swing, I think it's just another point for me in that less is more. In that if we lost a 1,000 or two around the tour, that it would elevate all the others. If we did Madrid one year, Rome the next, for example, that's just an option that just came into my head for the first time. That Rome has to stay for a million different reasons, but history being and tradition being the one of the most obvious ones for me. But I would probably think about trying to lose a 1,000 somewhere, whether it be Miami, whether it be Cincinnati, a country I know as big as America, but still 3 1,000s I think they have there, plus, of course, a Grand Slam.
I don't know. I mean, the WTA has just added a 1,000, right?
In the US or in general?
Well, in general, because Doha and Dubai are going to be, well, they're not going to be switching 500, 1,000 every year, but they're going to be both 1,000s next year. And
then
there's also that one undisclosed location yet, but that sort of comes in for Guadalajara. So, it's going to be 10 WTA 1,000s next year.
I'm just seeing a challenge here, but the umpire is pretty convinced it landed out.
No, it was definitely out, but Dimitrov thought it might be in after the point. I think he was even like clenching his fist, but he will get to 1530 as Jarry throws out this +1 backhand, which was a very well. The error was like 3 meters, so
yeah, I just think there's just too many. I think if there was one in Asia, for example, one in the US, we had the clay court ones. I mean, as I said, just a random thought, but I'm not necessarily saying this is the way we should go. But go 1 year Madrid, 1 year Rome, and just to have one or two less. But as you suggested, the WTA ever decided to add one rather than take one away. I just think it would elevate as well the level of importance and significance of each 1,000. And I think you would also not get tournaments where Carlos is saying, I'm not going to play this 1,000 on the eve of the French Open, or you won't get a tournament like Guadalajara where I think there's no one from the top 10 playing, or if there was, it might have been one and they went out
there
early.
There were a few.
Really?
Sakari Garcia was still in the top 10.
Sakari,
I think Jabber was playing.
Okay.
Maybe three from the top 10. I think.
Perhaps I'm just thinking about maybe one or two went out super early, but also with the exception of
Jabber only, really, yeah.
Okay, but with the exception of Jabber, Garcia, and Sakari, probably haven't played top 10 tennis this year.
Well, Sakari, after winning Guadalajara,
well, she's won
guess,
that, yeah.
But yeah, Garcia probably not.
So we've got a break point or two here for Dimitrov.
Yeah, the first is safe, just like the previous ones, but we'll see about the second.
Mm-hmm. Terry's got a really good question. I know the answer to it.
I don't know where you are in the game.
I'm behind you. I'm on the second break point.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you see it. What are the rule as to who serves first after a
I
tiebreak? It's opposed. Like if Dimitrov kicks off the first set and there's a tiebreak, Jarry kicks off the second. That's literally the rule.
Yeah, I
Um,
actually only just learned this the other day because I was in exactly this situation where I was like, actually, I'm not sure who says first, and I checked it. So yeah, I mean, you're right the way you put it, but I put it in a different way. In that the seventh game or the 13th game counts as like a game.
as one,
So
yeah, it counts as
yeah,
one, not as two, which basically means that you treat it as odd, as an odd number of games instead of an even number of games. Yeah.
right, yeah. So you served. Let's say you serve first in the tiebreak. Whatever happens in that tiebreak, if you win it seven
Yes.
zero, 7-1, you will serve second in the second set.
Yes, basically, it's still the rule that if there's an odd number of games, you switch it, and if there's an even one, you still the one who serves first still serves first. It basically still applies. You just count the
Yeah,
tiebreak as one game.
exactly.
So
It's like
after the
if you
tiebreak,
serve
it's
first,
gonna
it's your service game
yeah.
basically. Yeah,
After the tiebreak, it's gonna change every single time, regardless of what happens in the tiebreak.
we have another break point here for Dimitrov. The previous one, by the way, that you just highlighted was a really good forehand winner from Jarry to save it.
Yeah, and I mean it was also so risky. I mean,
Yeah,
you just basically got it on the line.
yeah,
And the next breakpoint is actually going to be another one where Dimitrov gets a return in.
yeah. It was an unorthodox return as well. Really good defense there from Dimitrov on the stretch, and it's a difficult smash, and it's gone long.
Yep,
It's a really difficult smash. One of those ones that, of course, I mean, the defense, by the way, from Dimitrov, first of all, needs to be applauded. Not least because, of course, it bounced quite deep, and it was one of those sort of serve smashes, if you like, which I think are. Oh, I could see Dimitrov just getting a bit of treatment here, probably for a shoulder that he's just
shoulder. Yeah,
extended with that smash. Um, fingers crossed, it's nothing more than
smash.
precautionary.
Which
But
smash?
oh, so of course it wasn't him doing the smash. Yeah, what am I talking about? But anyway, it was him doing. He was still stretching, of course, with the defense. It was an incredible defensive shot. Actually, it's incredible that he managed to get a racket on it. Never mind with such effect. But yeah, Dimitrov then kicks the ball in frustration because you should be making that, I guess, at least inside the court 8 times out of 10. But for me, just watching it from an amateur's perspective, I think it's a really difficult shot. One of the smashes I think that Kokinakis had in that legendary rally with Murray at the beginning of the year included one of those sort of bounces, smashes, and he lands it in. It's not the one, not where he ends up erring. I think with a forehand into the net in that rally. I also remember Rafa missing one in a tiebreak with Tsitsipas when Tsitsipas comes back from 2-0 down in 2021, I think it was. Yeah, 2021.
But by the way, did you see Noah Rubin getting blocked on Twitter today? Like
No,
banned, suspended? Yeah,
no.
he basically said something about the Israel um, conflict.
Okay, okay.
Basically, that there was something about yeah, instead of sending in troops now and fighting a bloody war, they're actually going to starve out Hamas in Gaza. Like that was the tweet that he quote tweeted, and then he said that this is how it should be done, and said something like that basically. And a couple of hours later, he was suspended.
Oh,
Noah is Jewish, right? So that's
okay.
why he probably has strong feelings on the issue. I
Mm-hmm.
personally don't know enough about the conflict to like have any sort of opinion about what
Sure.
he said. But yeah, generally I've seen a lot of negative comments about it, about what he said, because he's basically saying that the right thing to do is to starve out people and like
Mm-hmm.
to commit genocide in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And people have been also sort of saying that it kind of doesn't work with Noah's image of standing up for the lower ranked guys in tennis and like always trying to
Oh, I
improve the
see.
situation of those who are alienated in a way. And yeah, that's probably true. But again, don't really have an opinion on that because I don't know enough about the conflict.
No, I
Barely
tell you what. I tell you
read
what. I would
news.
address though is the second part. Is I don't think it should. It will, but actually, I don't think it should undermine what is a very separate. I mean, listen, it's possible. Hitler was a vegetarian painter, but we don't all think that painting and vegetarianism are necessarily linked to evil atrocities just because of. So what I'm saying is that I think it's a case by case thing. That it's unfortunate, extremely unfortunate, that some people will interpret it and conflate the two issues and say, "Oh, this undermines it," but it shouldn't have any impact at all on on that separate issue regarding the tennis players of the lower ranked ones, where he's obviously been championing that cause. I guess he won't be able to champion it so much, but yeah, it's a real pity. I think we're going to see a lot of this. I mean, I saw a sports journalist. Again, we're not necessarily commenting on the conflict itself, but I saw a sports journalist of Jewish origin who didn't like the
Oh,
BBC's.
journalists?
Yeah, sports journalist, not a super well-known one, but a
Okay,
sports
okay.
journalist at the BBC has said that he won't be covering football matches anymore for the BBC
Mm-hmm.
because of the BBC's stance on not describing Hamas as a terrorist network.
Okay.
So he stepped. Now, listen, he's a guy with 1,000 followers, I think. He's actually not someone I was actually familiar with until yesterday, but I thought that's an interesting thing, and I just think we might see a lot more of this as people on one side or the other, and there were very few people, or not many, or let's say there's a lot of people. That's better by the way of saying it. There's a lot of people that will have a lot of strong feelings one way or the other on this conflict, more than perhaps most, because I think as divisive as issues have been in whether it be Yugoslavia or other parts of the Middle East, or of course right now with Russia and Ukraine, I don't know if they're as widespread around the world. I don't know if people on their people in a suburb of New York would actually be, particularly of a working class origin, or working class part of society, whether they would have that big of an interest in what's going on in Yugoslavia or Ukraine. But I think they would have a very strong interest and feeling towards what's going on in this particularly sensitive part of the Middle East. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this, particularly, as well as I think the media has got itself in such a mess, in my opinion, regarding this conflict, in the way it's kind of taken one side or the other. That yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot more of this in the coming days and weeks. But of course, yeah, I mean, again, it'll be interesting to see. I was actually just thinking about this the other day, about whether tennis press conferences might end up getting questions like this. I mean, with the
Well,
do we have many Muslims on tour? I mean, obviously Ons Jabeur is the most prominent one, I guess.
yeah, I don't think we do. Yeah,
So
I mean,
we
of
we
Jewish origin, you've got Schwartzman for sure, right?
mm,
Shapovalov,
okay, yeah,
Karatsev.
yeah,
That's some bigger names. Um,
and that's the thing. You're just going to have so few voices from. eh,
yeah, it's not like with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, yeah,
right, right.
where there are so many players and it comes up every single time. But
Yeah.
it's not the first time, right? In Israel, of course, there's been that conflict is basically has been ongoing for years, and
hmm you
I
could argue
think
3,000, but
yeah,
that's a long way of looking at it. But I
and
know what
and
you mean.
there's been issues in the past with, for example, when I think Dudi Sela had to play Malek Jaziri, where like maybe the Tunisian Federation didn't want to allow Jaziri to play against someone from Israel, or maybe the
Okay.
other way around.
hmm
So we've had situations like that, but they haven't really been high profile or yeah, definitely not as media sort of the media wasn't as invested as in the Ukraine Russia conflict for sure. Now maybe this will change a bit since the conflict has escalated for sure.
Hmm. Dimitrov serving for the match, something that's a little bit less controversial and a little bit easier to discuss without upsetting anyone. And
Yeah.
there's some crazy Chileans out there right now that are really angry with our coverage today. But fingers crossed, there aren't. So yes, he has 30 love now. Talk us through the sort of the next couple of points because I know you're a slight step
Yeah.
ahead of me.
30 love Dimitrov, so just 2 points away. Still hasn't faced a breakpoint. There was that one love 30, so cruising in all of his service games, and looks like he might still, take that to the finish line. The Jarry is in the next rally though. He gets that inside in forehand, but again, I think he should have been at the net. I don't know if it will hurt him actually. It won't, since Dimitrov chases down the drop shot but doesn't make the pass. But yeah, I think this is another one of these examples where like Jarry hits a great forehand and should have been on top of the net already. This allows Dimitrov to be back into the point, but he cannot flick that forehand. I think he also touched his thigh here, Dimitrov, maybe a little bit, but it doesn't seem like something super serious.
I love a good long rally or two when someone is serving for it. Uh, four unreturnables. I'm not a big fan of those kind of games. I'd love a. That's good to see that. Jarry has a little bit of belief there with the fist pump as well. Yeah, I saw what you mean. It might even have been the groin actually from Dimitrov. I don't know if that was.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I only saw it from like the camera behind him. Probably you have the same feed, right? I mean, maybe
Yeah,
not in terms of like stats and etc., but probably the same in terms
yeah,
of the
production.
production. Yeah.
Forehand there, error, giving Dimitrov 2 match points.
Yeah, and that's gonna be the match as well. He serves out wide. Jarry throws out the return. It's long. Not much of a reaction from Dimitrov, but it was a bit of a um well, I don't know. I don't want to say straightforward because it's never straightforward against Jarry, but you never really felt like Dimitrov was in danger despite the big
No.
serve of the Chilean. Obviously, that could have been different very quickly if he just lost his serve at some point.
Yeah, but he never looked threat. I don't think Jarry had a break point. If I'm
No, he
getting this
didn't. There was one 15-30 and one love 30, but then
yeah.
there never really were any minor chances in these points even. So
So Dimitrov against Umber or Rublev, and Hurkacz against Korda tomorrow. How do you see that Hurkacz Korda match going?
50-50. I think that's what the odds are, and I would agree with that. Like they are basically 50-50. I'm actually not sure who's favored. I remember the Australian Open, Korda was favored over Hurkacz, and I also thought that was right at the time.
Yeah,
He actually the match ended up being really close,
yeah.
deciding set tiebreak. Obviously, a lot closer than we expected probably at the time. But yeah, right now I just cannot really split them. Personally, I thought actually from what I see, Hurkacz started as a bit of a favorite, but now they're basically at 50-50 in terms of the odds. But anyway, I thought that for Hurkacz, maybe Shelton would have been the better opponent because well, Shelton is still very raw and like has these moments when he can basically lose a game or two just because he is wild. Whereas Korda, he just is a little sharper. There's no weaknesses really in his game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he will choke. I mean, yesterday he had so many issues closing out against Shelton, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's happening for him in general. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
him we talked about it on this stream as well,
Mm-hmm.
regarding Astana even last week. Well, 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, I guess. So I don't know. If it comes down to like the deciding tiebreak, I would trust Hurkacz more. But yeah, I cannot really split them. Someone was also asking about the Umber Rublev match. pancake. That was actually 12 minutes ago, but maybe he's still there. I think we said earlier that Umber beat him in Beijing, basically. So obviously he has a shot again. I don't really know again whether I can call anyone a favorite. I know Rublev has had so many great results compared to Umber, and also just the consistency of the base level that he has. But is Umber's peak performance actually stronger than Rublev? I don't know if Rublev's peak, but Rublev's base level probably. And if Umber can keep playing like he has been the last few weeks, I think it's very open as well, which makes it exciting.
Yeah. Rublev did say that he feels as though in practice at least, he's playing the best tennis of the year for him. So, yeah, for someone who's obviously been to a couple of Grand Slam quarterfinals, but also winning his first 1,000 title this year, that says something, I guess. And I might just be erring slightly towards him with that one. But as you say, Umber is capable of a lot with his ceiling. For those of you tuning in, by the way, make sure you hit the like button and do subscribe if you're new. Pancake, great to see you in the chat today, for example. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Yeah, so that's to come later on. And Dimitrov awaits the winner. Dimitrov, of course, having a solid year, but hasn't really, to me, looked like winning a big title in any of these solid tournaments.
Yeah, he hasn't had a title since the ATP Finals 2017. I mean,
Oh,
since the
really? Since
2000, yeah,
2017?
since the
Won a
2017
single
ATP
title.
Finals, he only has two finals, which is Rotterdam 2018, so at the very beginning of his drought, where he lost to Federer and was not a close match, and then Geneva against Jarry, actually, this year. That was his first final in over 5 years, and he hasn't won a title since winning in London at the O2. So
Win Paris Bercy the same year, or just
I don't think so. He won Cincinnati. That's his
okay.
only ATP 1000. He won it over Kyrgios 2017. So that was his only ATP 1000. Then he won the ATP Finals, finished the year number 3, of course. Then also was one of the big favorites for the Australian Open, and boom, that's over. And of course, it's not like he hasn't had good results since. He has made a few. Well, since he has made at least one Slam semi, right? 2019 US Open, and I also wonder if there maybe wasn't. Was there another one?
2019 Australia, or is it
Um,
2017 Australia?
no, that
2019. No,
17,
2017. 2017.
17 for sure.
Yeah, no, not
And I
2019.
guess 2019 would be his only one since, but he has made a Slam semi, so that's sort of equivalent to a title, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
basically just two finals since the ATP Finals 2017. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for him, obviously. I hope that he's gonna make the final. Honestly, I think it would be a very exciting story if he was in another final. If it was a big final as well, and at this point you have to say that he's in it to win it. He is playing Rublev or Umber in the semis. That's not opponents he will be afraid of. Like against Rublev, it's probably a 50-50. Against Umber, I would expect him to be a favorite. And Hurkacz Korda, it's all very tight. I think he has a good record against Hurkacz. Has Hurkacz finally beat him, or is it still like 3-0 or 4-0 for Dimitrov? It used to be like, yeah, 3-0 Dimitrov, and basically all of their matches were decided by the tie breaks, but still.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I think those. I mean, I guess Rublev too. I mean, so we've got five left, five
Yeah.
players left, and I would probably make Umber the outsider, but he could easily win today, as we touched on earlier.
Yeah, Uber is
Um,
probably the least likely winner, that
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and
Out
then
of these five, yeah.
but then if Umber is maybe less than 10%, the other four somehow share the 90%, and I think
Very close, and
yeah,
yeah, like, I think between all four of them, obviously right now you have to like Hurkacz, Korda, and Dimitrov's chances more than Rublev, because Rublev is still in the quarters.
yeah,
But like, assuming we don't really look at that, then I think they are super tight with each other. Yeah, these
yeah.
four, and Umber is significantly behind. Yeah,
If that becomes the final four, uh,
I'll just have no clue. I'm just gonna call every match a 50-50 from their their own words, and stop at that.
which is good for tennis in a way,
Yeah.
because we've seen so many tournaments and matches and so many people on Twitter getting angry about the lack of respect we have for certain, not we, but we, the tennis community, have for certain players. But there have been a lot of tournaments where on the men's side, we're just sort of waiting for Alcaraz to hopefully play Djokovic in the final. And on the one occasion, for example, when that didn't happen on the occasion it didn't happen in New York, it was like, well, there you go, you see, it can happen. And then we got the final that we got. So it was like, yeah, that's why we were just sort of hoping for. And but this is great. You know, when you go into a tournament when there's just one of Alcaraz or Djokovic, yeah, in a way for the tournament, it's good if one of them is not there in the latter stages, like Rome, I guess. I mean, we had Djokovic in the quarters, and I think Alcaraz went out a bit earlier, and I think we had some good, intriguing tennis. I mean, the Casper Ruud, Holger Rune semi-final was really good. There was intrigue, at least, regarding Medvedev's semi-final and ultimate final win, and I know narratives have been written since then, but I think actually Rune was still very much in that match and could have got that back on that second set against Medvedev. I think that could well have been very different. So yeah, there we go. Sean suggesting makes me think it could be interesting when Djokovic is retired. Yeah, but then
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. But we might also be in a universe where we're just waiting for Alcaraz to win the title rather than we're waiting for Alcaraz to.
Yeah, the main question, I guess, is whether we're going to be back into like a similar, I don't want to say big free dominance era because that's not happening, but like whether we're going to be back into like an era where you have 5-6 dominating players, let's say Alcaraz, Rune, Sinner, Medvedev, Zverev for now, maybe
But
someone else coming back.
That's better.
That's fine already.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're going to be back into some wild times, like, I don't know, moments when Albert Portas won an ATP 1000 and you know, I don't know. We'll see. It's both are possible, I think. Although it seems like, you know, Alcaraz, Rune, Sinner, there are too strong prospects for the wild eras to come back, I think. But yeah, for now, of course, they still have their fair share of issues, and now we have a very exciting ATP 1000. I honestly think that people who will be complaining, because certainly there will be people complaining if there's a final between, let's say Korda Umber especially, but I don't know, even Korda Dimitrov. People who will be complaining are just, you know, stuck up and sort of they just want the big names for the big names. Like there's no real you know, sometimes you get the big names and you don't get the quality. Obviously, sometimes you get the Cincinnati final, Alcaraz Djokovic, and I obviously wouldn't mind that happening again. But the big names don't always guarantee quality and entertainment. I mean, we've seen it many times this year with Djokovic winning so many slam matches without really having to do well. Yeah, without having to step up, with like his neutral gear being enough, and that's an indicator of how good he is. But that also means that the matches will not be too exciting.
Indeed. Anyway, the wild days. I like that. We're going to finish on that note. So whether we'll be returning to the wild days or not, it'll be
And
interesting.
sorry to Albert Portas. He was just the first sort of most random ATP 1000 winner that came to me. On the women's, definitely there's a bit more.
What year was that? Do you know? For Albert Portas?
2001, I would say. I think
Yeah.
it was definitely one of the clay ones. I would maybe assume it was like Hamburg. Let me actually check that very quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, and it's his only ATP title as well, which is just insane. Only ATP title, the ATP 1000. At a slam, he was never past the third round. So I think the example was pretty good. Also, in the ATP 1000 events, he was never past the third round as well, outside of that Hamburg title, 2001. Yes, when he beat Juan Carlos Ferrero in 5 sets. That's crazy.
Nice. Wild days for the Spaniard and for the tennis world. Okay, thank you for everyone for tuning in. Yeah, we'll be speaking to you all again very, very soon. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis. If there's one match from Rafa's story where you think that was a missed opportunity, there was a big chance.
There have matches,
2
or 3 in Australian Open. No more. We lose the opportunity in Wimbledon against Djokovic in semi-final.
2018.
Then we lose the opportunity, more important because that was semi-final. We lose the opportunity in Australian Open. In the Australian Open 2014, 2012 and 2017.
Yeah.
In 14 because he has an injury against Wawrinka that before he had never lose against him. Then with Djokovic and Federer, he had breakup in the 5th.
Yeah.
And 40-30 or 30-50. I don't remember well. It was a ball very close, goes. But this is what happened. There was in Roland Garros 2009. Of course, he I am sure that he won. He will win. He won this tournament when he has no problems in his knee, because at this moment he was the best. He won Australian Open, then he won the tournaments on clay, and he arrived with problems in Roland Garros. For this reason, in my opinion, he lose. But there are others time that maybe he has to lose and he won.
There were with the mental side of tennis, from my perspective as a fan, if you like, the 2 things that strike me in tennis compared to lots of other sports that I think make it a big mental challenge is, first of all, it's an individual sport. But secondly, so there's nowhere to hide. Like in football, in a team sport, you can just give the ball to another, teammate, and you cannot call for it if you like. But there's nowhere to hide. The other thing as well in tennis is again in something like football, you can be really nervous, but you can get a bit lucky. And of course, that can be the case in tennis. But basically, your body could be shaking when you're about to take a penalty, okay? And you can still score because you can just put your foot through it, right? You just hit it as hard as you can. And actually, probably you will still score because of the odds on that.
Yeah.
But there's that in a sport such as darts, snooker, tennis, where you need to be pretty calm and you need to have a pretty steady hand. There's just nowhere to hide. Is there anything I'm missing, or am I underplaying something, or even overplaying?
No. I think you're 100% correct. I think the real tough thing about these sports and tennis in particular, because of how physical it is as well, is the relentlessness of point after point. And if you're nervous, you have to fight through those nerves sometimes for an hour. And they might disappear for a while, but then suddenly, you're 5-all and it's tight again, and you're feeling very tight, and you have to manage it over and over again. And I think the best players in the world just use their tools and remember to use their tools in big moments. Because, once you get to pro level, it's not like any player doesn't kind of know what they have to do, but it's in the heat of that moment that they either don't remember because the brain is frying a little bit, or they don't have the courage to use them.
Yeah.
So, for us sitting there, I remember when Roger Federer had 2 match points against Novak at Wimbledon serving.
Yeah.
You're thinking serve and volley both.
Okay.
Yeah, probably Novak's not going to make a great return on both.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know whether what Roger was thinking, or maybe knew something more than I did, but that was my thinking. But he didn't, and they slipped through his hands. Now to do that though in that moment takes a huge amount of courage.
Yeah.
And first to make the decision, and then secondly to follow through the decision like that. But then you've always got, and this is what's so tough for players, the other thing is, match point, make the person play. Don't serve and give them a quick volley or whatever. And that's another school of thought. But I think deep down, players get to a place where they have an instinct. And I think, I say this over and over again, the best players in the world are the most relaxed and the bravest. Because in those moments, when their instinct is telling them something, they are brave enough to follow it. And which is why, and again, it doesn't guarantee you're going to win, but I do think it starts to push the odds more in your favor. I'll just say one other thing is,
yeah,
I don't know if anybody's ever been go-karting or any kind of motor racing or watches motor racing,
mm-hmm.
but when a driver gets in the groove, they lap like within 0.1 of a second of every lap, like in this unbelievable groove.
Mm-hmm.
But if they lose that groove, when they're in that groove, it seems so easy. Just do it. It's like no hassle. But if they lose that groove, if they go a little too fast, then they slide out of a corner, they lose time. If they go a little too slow, then that's not effective. And the margins are so small to stay on that groove. And for players as well, when you go into something like the French Open or any tournament, but especially the big ones, you hope that you can get through that first match and find a groove. And if you get in that groove, then that gives you your best chances of winning, because then most stuff is happening automatically, which is the most effective. Everybody has a problem when they start to think on the court, and automatic is fastest and easiest because you know how to do things. And it's not like you don't register. I say when you're playing very well, you are aware of everything, but nothing distracts you. When you start to think, your thoughts start to distract you. And that's very difficult to manage. And if you can learn how to manage that and get yourself back in the groove a little faster than other players, that's obviously, helps with ranking and why certain players, are more consistent than others, because they tend to manage that better. I hope that makes sense anyway.
It does. It definitely does.
Thanks for tuning into this watch along. While there's a break in play, here's a reminder to hit the like button, subscribe, and click that notification bell. Your support helps to keep the channel going. While we're here, you can now become a member to enjoy perks, including badges for the live chat, but also bonus material, such as interviews with top players from both ATP and WTA tours. The membership link is pinned in the live chat. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So whether it be serves or volleys, forehands or backhands, serve bots or drop shots, we've got you covered, whether that be via our website, talking-tennis.com, where you can read features and interviews from our top writers. Or if you prefer us in audio form, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Remember, we offer you wall-to-wall coverage via our regular watch-alongs, magazine shows such as Nick's WTA Weekly or Damien and Mario's ATP version. Plus, we deliver top content from people on the ground, actually at the tournaments, so you get even nearer to the action. So, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all things tennis. Thanks for tuning into this watch along. While there's a break in play, here's a reminder to hit the like button, subscribe, and click that notification bell. Your support helps to keep the channel going. While we're here, you can now become a member to enjoy perks, including badges for the live chat, but also bonus material, such as interviews with top players from both ATP and WTA tours. The membership link is pinned in the live chat. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So whether it be serves or volleys, forehands or backhands, serve bots or drop shots, we've got you covered, whether that be via our website, talking-tennis.com, where you can read features and interviews from our top writers. Or if you prefer us in audio form, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Remember, we offer you wall-to-wall coverage via our regular watch-alongs, magazine shows such as Nick's WTA Weekly or Damien and Mario's ATP version. Plus, we deliver top content from people on the ground, actually at the tournaments, so you get even nearer to the action. So, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all things tennis. was some Australian Open final vibes for me today, and I was looking at a couple of comparisons. Australia was 2 hours 28 minutes. Today was 2:26. I'm sure you weren't aware of that. But I tell you, 4 championship points. Does that sound familiar? And were you thinking of it during that last game?
Actually, yes, I was thinking when I was down with the break in the last game, I was thinking, okay, I did it at the Australia Open, so probably I'll be able to get this win this time again, and it's actually helped me to stay focused and to have this belief in myself. And yeah, definitely this match reminds a lot of Australia Open match.
You've been to the French Open final. Your breakthrough, at least standout result at the beginning of your career, was on grass against Venus. You've been very solid on the hard courts. Is there a slam in particular that you go, I think that's, if I'm going to get one, the first one might come here, there, or where?
Well, I don't know. I mean, everyone, I'm like, I think this is the first one. So I don't know. I mean, obviously now going to the French, I do have a lot of confidence on the surface. But I'm not really thinking about that. I feel like, in the past I was, and it gave me some like defeats that I feel like I shouldn't have lost, maybe more so my head. So going in now, I mean, I feel like, everyone could be the one, but I think I have to just take it a match at a time and just feel it out and enjoy it. I think when you focus too much on the destination, you don't enjoy the journey there. So now I want to focus more on the journey, and if the destination gets there, that's great.
Thanks for tuning into this watch along. While there's a break in play, here's a reminder to hit the like button, subscribe, and click that notification bell. Your support helps to keep the channel going. While we're here, you can now become a member to enjoy perks including badges for the live chat, but also bonus material such as interviews with top players from both ATP and WTA tours. The membership link is pinned in the live chat. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So whether it be serves or volleys, forehands or backhands, serve bots or drop shots, we've got you covered. Whether that be via our website, talking-tennis.com, where you can read features and interviews from our top writers. Or if you prefer us in audio form, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Remember, we offer you wall-to-wall coverage via our regular watch-alongs, magazine shows such as Nick's WTA Weekly or Damien and Mario's ATP version. Plus, we deliver top content from people on the ground, actually at the tournaments, so you get even nearer to the action. So, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all things tennis. Thanks for tuning into this watch along. While there's a break in play, here's a reminder to hit the like button, subscribe and click that notification bell. Your support helps to keep the channel going. While we're here, you can now become a member to enjoy perks including badges for the live chat, but also bonus material such as interviews with top players from both ATP and WTA tours. The membership link is pinned in the live chat. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So whether it be serves or volleys, forehands or backhands, serve bots or drop shots, we've got you covered. Whether that be via our website, talking-tennis.com, where you can read features and interviews from our top writers. Or if you prefer us in audio form, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Amazon or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. Remember, we offer you wall-to-wall coverage via our regular watch-alongs, magazine shows such as Nick's WTA Weekly or Damien and Mario's ATP version. Plus, we deliver top content from people on the ground, actually at the tournaments, so you get even nearer to the action. So, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all things tennis.
If there's one match from Rafa's story where you think that was a missed opportunity, there was a big chance. There
have matches,
2
or 3 in Australian Open. No more. We lose the opportunity in Wimbledon against Djokovic in semi-final.
2018.
Then we lose the opportunity more important because that was semi-final. We lose the opportunity in Australian Open. In the Australian Open 2014, 2012 and 2017.
Yeah.
In 14 because he has an injury against Wawrinka that before he had never lose against him. Then with Djokovic and Federer, he had breakup in the 5th.
Yeah.
And 40-30 or the 30-50. I don't remember well. It was a ball very close, goes up. But this is what happened. There was in Roland Garros 2009. Of course, he I am sure that he won. He will he won this tournament when he has no problems in his knee, because at this moment he was the best. He won Australian Open, then he won the tournaments on clay, and he arrived with problems in Roland Garros. For this reason, in my opinion, he loses. But there are others time that maybe he has to lose and he won.
If there's one match from Rafa's story where you think that was a missed opportunity, there was a big chance.
We have matches,
2
or 3 in Australian Open. No more. We lose the opportunity in Wimbledon against Djokovic in semifinal.
2018.
Then we lose the opportunity more important because that was semifinal. We lose the opportunity in Australian Open. In the Australian Open 2014, 2012 and 2017.
Yeah.
In 14 because he has an injury against Wawrinka that before he had never lose against him. Then with Djokovic and Federer, he had breakup in the 5th.
Yeah.
And 40-30 or 30-50. I don't remember well. It was a ball very close, goes up. But this is what happened. There was in Roland Garros 2009. Of course, he I am sure that he won. He will win. He won this tournament when he has no problems in his knee, because at this moment he was the best. He won Australian Open, then he won the tournaments on clay, and he arrived with problems in Roland Garros. For this reason, in my opinion, he loses. But there are others time that maybe he has to lose and he won.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.